What would you say, like to give advice for someone trying to get into this law enforcement field? Like, what would you say to them?
Well, number one thing is what's your motive?
Yeah.
Check your motive for getting into law enforcement because a badge and a gun and authority is a pretty big deal.
Hmm.
And if your motive is to just possess a badge, a gun, and authority to exert authority, don't get into this business. Um, ch- check your motive.
Hmm.
Why do you really want to become a police officer? The other one would be have a clear and distinct line in the sand when it comes to ethics. What are you willing to do and what are you willing not to do?
Yeah.
Because there are going to be times in this job where you have to make ethical decisions.
Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty. That's definitely. I completely agree. You got to
Yeah,
know
and if
what
you
you got
don't
to know
have
who
that
you are.
right, if you don't
Yeah.
have that clear line in the sand of what you stand for and
Hmm.
what you will not tolerate, then you're going to be making some bad choices. And those bad choices in this job could cost somebody their liberty or their life. And you
You know,
can't have that.
when I left the juvenile jail, I said this in another interview that I had, but I left the juvenile jail. There was an instructor that I had when I went through their academy, but he was also one of the detention officers. And he said, what you do in here and what you don't do in here makes all the difference. And I actually carried that from detention to the street because it all matters. It's like what you
It all
do and what you don't do matters because especially now with the invention of the camera phone, you know, everybody's a reporter, everybody's a blogger, you know, so
yeah,
um what you didn't do today, somebody saw it. And what you do or don't do tomorrow, somebody saw that too. And you'll always be compared to that. So you got to kind
right,
of be the same person every day. And the only way that you can do that is to have some type of moral compass as to who you are, what you believe in and stand for. So I completely agree with
right.
that.
You got to know what you're going to stand for
Hmm.
and what you won't,
As
and
long as
have
long as
that
what you,
courage.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
have
was
that
just,
courage to stand up and speak
yep.
when
I was gonna
you
say, as
see
long as what you
something.
stand for is within the guidelines of the law.
Right. I
So yeah,
mean,
yeah,
right. Yeah. But I mean that's not only standing for it, but speaking for it as
yep,
well.
yep.
Because that silence,
Hmm.
what they call that blue wall of silence, that's what people don't like.
Hmm.
And if you see something that you disagree with that offends your moral compass, you need to speak out. Meaning either to that other individual or to a
Yeah,
supervisor. But you can't just we are at a time in law enforcement where we just can't let things slide.
yeah,
We
yep.
can't. We can't let things slide anymore. Um, there's just that needs to change.
Definitely, definitely. So speaking of change, what kind of trends do you see coming up? Let's say over the next 5, 10 years, say in law enforcement, or you know.
Uh, you know, it's hard to say. I mean, it's so politically driven right now. Um, and it's nothing that law enforcement hasn't experienced in the past. If you look
Hmm.
at law enforcement, recruitment and recruitment numbers, we experienced the same low numbers back in the late 60s and 70s
Hmm.
where it plummeted. Recruitment plummeted, and we didn't have enough coming in to cover the retirees leaving.
Hmm.
Um, so this isn't anything we haven't experienced in the field before.
Hmm.
We'll get through it again. It just seems when politics drive recruitment, they do, and when there's a huge anti-police sentiment out there, and then you have politicians chiming in in favor of that anti-police sentiment,
Hmm.
um, recruitment numbers are going to plummet, and they always do. It's when the politicians get faith back into or attempt to make improvements to the field where numbers start to increase again.
Do
But
you have
it ebbs and flows.
do you have faith in that bounce back? Because I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, politicians weren't siding with the anti-police settlement like they are today. Not
I
to get too
do.
political,
I
but
do.
you know,
Mhm. No, no, no. I get it. However, what we're seeing right now is really just a recreation of the 60s and late 60s and early 70s. I mean, you think of the Watts riots and the LA
oh yeah,
riots
yeah, yeah, that's right, that's true. Yeah,
and the Democrat National Convention
yep.
that was in Chicago.
Chicago with
Um,
Richard Daley, yep, the mayor.
yeah.
Hmm.
So there
That's
were
true.
and on the campuses in Kent State and
Yep.
you politicians were against Kent State. They were against
Hmm.
they were against the police acting the way they did with that. And then in the marches, all the police response with tear gas and the batons and all that. The
Yep.
politicians weren't behind that either.
Hmm.
And what happened with that then is that they did a study. They did hundreds and hundreds of studies on what would improve policing, and
Yeah.
lo and behold, um, it was education. Go figure. Um,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the difference between then and now. Back then they pushed the research pushed for a 4-year degree,
Hmm.
um, and it's really now it's showing all the studies. What the studies show now is that a 4-year degree overqualifies a frontline officer
Yeah.
because it's a liberal arts degree, and they they question their supervisors more instead of getting that job satisfaction.
Hmm.
So there's a disinterest in law enforcement once a person achieves that 4-year degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Definitely.
what I what I found is that a 2-year degree, an associate degree, is more of a technical skill. The
Hmm.
job satisfaction in the research shows that job satisfaction among first line responders with an associate degree is very, very high.
Okay.
So those with an associate degree that have learned the basics of our criminal justice system and how our law works in our society, and you know the concept of federalism
Hmm.
and the state rule and that kind of thing. When you learn those concepts, um, frontline policing employs those concepts. So it's the theory and the practical. So
Yes.
you're learning the theory with the associate degree,
Hmm.
and you're employing the practical of that theory while you're working. So as a frontline officer. So yeah, it's education is the difference. That 4-year degree, not unless you plan on going through your career to make, lieutenant or chief. It really overqualifies a person for policing. It really truly does,
Yeah.
unless they're seeking upper supervisory role. Um, they you really it's not needed. What's needed is understanding of the basic concepts of our government and how it operates and the criminal justice system.
Hmm.
Um, Plus, it's not as long. It's only 2 years. It's not 4 years. So you're not
Hmm.
investing 4 years of your life outside of your career. So that 2-year degree, I really think should be a requirement because the benefits outweigh any disadvantage.
Yeah.
Um, the programs that the government could come up with,
Hmm.
like a tuition reimbursement, if they, if they go, because the student loan back in the late 70s, early 80s, they really pushed the college degree.
Hmm.
So the federal government set up that program. I can't think of it off the top of my head. And they gave out grants and student loans to any police officer who wanted to get a 4-year degree. And what they found was nobody repaid the loans. And so
Wow.
the student loan program, yeah. So the student loan program was a failure, a flop. And now these
Yeah.
officers have 4-year degrees, and they're dissatisfied in their jobs, and they're leaving law enforcement and using that degree for something else.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas a 2-year, if you require an associate degree in order to go through the basic training academy, um, there could be a tuition reimbursement. You get employed and you will get reimbursed monthly for the next 2 years of your employment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that would be, uh, what's the word? Not a benefit, or I can't think of the word. It's getting late.
Yeah.
Incentive,
Yeah. Yeah.
an
Yeah.
incentive to get a 2-year degree.
Hmm.
Think about it. People look to us as police officers to solve their problems. That's what I
Yeah.
call. They
Yep.
call police because they have a problem, and they think police should know the laws and
Hmm.
help them solve their problem. Well, in Ohio, you have to be 18 years of age or older with a valid driver's license and no felony convictions. Do you feel comfortable enough to have an 18-year-old college or high school graduate
Yeah.
helping you with your problem,
Someone that
your
doesn't
domestic
hasn't even
problem?
really lived life yet, that doesn't know
Right,
anything about the
right,
basics of life. Yeah, you're right.
right.
Now I
I
agree.
mean,
Even
6 months in the academy
yeah.
is
Yep.
nothing like the armed forces,
Mm,
nothing.
yeah.
Because
And you,
people, the
no.
the biggest thing I hear is that
Mm-hmm.
people are like, well, we send our kids that are 18 to go fight in wars.
Mm-hmm.
I go, they also spend day and night living and breathing that military service
Yeah,
through
that's
basic
true.
training.
That's true.
You are plucked out of society,
Mm-hmm.
and you are placed in a controlled environment 24/7,
Yep.
and you are stripped down and rebuilt into a soldier. That is
That is a
not
fact.
what basic training, right? And that's not basic training in the police academy. You go
Mm-mm.
4 hours in the evening or the day, you go
Yep.
back to home to family, you go to work, you sleep in your own bed. You are still the same person.
Yep. That's true.
So it's night and day. It's night and
Mm-hmm.
day, and there's a reason that we are civilian police as opposed to government soldiers.
Yeah.
They're night and day. They're night and day. So we can't hold cadets, police cadets, on the same level that we hold soldiers. It's night and day.